Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve and this is a 5-minute review of Motherless Brooklyn from 2019. The film was written and directed by Edward Norton and it's based loosely on the novel by Jonathan Latham. The story is set in 1957 New York and it follows a private investigator with Tourette syndrome who is determined to solve the murder of his mentor. Now this film has an all-star cast. You've got Alec, Baldwin, you've got Edward Norton also in the film, Bruce Willis, Gugu, Mbatha-Raw, Ethan Suplee, Cannavale, Cherry Jones, Willem, Dafoe, Robert Wisdom and Michael Kenneth Smith. So all of these are extremely accomplished actors who've been in a lot of things and really have acting chops to bring to their roles, and all of them do. I recently listened to an interview with Alec Baldwin where Edward Norton was his guest on his podcast and he was talking about the direction of this film. And from what I can gather, the novel has the same core story and it's focused on the murder of Minna, but it takes place in the 1990s compared to this film being set in the 1950s. And the reason that Norton wanted to transpose it onto a much larger story is that during the 1950s there was a lot of change going on in New York, which is also socially relevant to today as well, but I won't go into too much detail about that without spoiling the film. Minna stumbles into something that got himself killed, something dangerous that very powerful people want to protect. They will do anything to keep their secrets and maintain social order, with them at the top and everybody else underneath being ground down underfoot. And the film is all about that. It's about racism, it's about gentrification, and what could be more apt than that kind of a film today. The performance in this film is amazing across the board. Norton plays the central figure of Lionel. He's this broken orphan who became something because of Minna. And even in this film, Bruce Willis wasn't phoning it in. He seemed to really connect to the material and engage with the job, which I thought was a refreshing change from his recent work. Alec Baldwin is menacing and ferocious and compelling as the villain of the film, except he's not chewing the furniture. Recently we've seen him very big and loud. He does comedy very well and he's done a lot of that stuff. But here he's quiet and he's intimidating, and it's really quite worrying, and it's quite an interesting performance, because Moses Randolph is a man who's actually doing the best for the city, but he's thinking about it in the future in 20, 30, 40 years' time. He's building it in his mind and thinking about that, but he's doing it not for the present, and he's not really worrying too much about the present or who it will affect. He just wants them to step out of the way. Norton as Lionel is this central character, and Edward Norton obtained the rights to this film, has held on to them for 20 years before he got it made for various reasons, and it shows you the strength of the character and the strength of the material. And his role as Lionel is this excellent, he's disjointed guy with these tics and twitches, but as good as it is and as fascinating it is, it's not really the focus of the film or the most interesting thing about it. On the one hand, I thought this film was amazing. It's incredibly atmospheric. The score by Daniel Pemberton is brilliant. The title track by Tom York from Radiohead and Flea from the Chili Peppers is absolutely riveting. The costumes are amazing, the technology, and I'm old enough to remember the life before the internet and how information flowed through the city. It's all telephones and on papers, and people are physically chasing down stories and have to talk to each other. And that's what this film is about, someone investigating the murder and having to do all of the legwork. On the other hand, I can see why some people wouldn't like this film. It's slow, and it's not that it's too long, but the pacing of the film, for me, is what it needs to be, because this isn't a crash bang wallop action film. It's methodical and clever and it's interesting, and you have to pay attention to it. In terms of the box office, it was a bomb. It only grossed 18 million on a 26 million budget, and unfortunately it was released the same weekend as Terminator Dark Fate, so it was always going to struggle. The final irony being that it is in fact a superior movie in every way. It requires the audience to invest in the characters and Lionel's search for the truth about who killed his mentor, but also why. It requires thought, and it leaves you with something after, something to think about. And it's a kind of interesting film that you can rewatch. But it's also a film for cinephiles, for those who love film and the work behind and in front of the camera, and the decisions made on why they did something a certain way. Over a week after watching this film, I'm still thinking about it. The performances, the stories, and the echoes that it has today in our real world. Not every detective film has to be run at breakneck speed, and with this one you like spending time with Lionel for all of the faults, because he's not a perfect person. And even though he's investigating a murder, you want to spend more time with him because his heart is in the right direction and he's a relatable hero because he's not the smartest and there are other people out there who are a lot more powerful than him and who have the full picture, whereas he's trying to piece it together, and yet he has to overcome all of these different obstacles to work out who is responsible. All he wants to know is who killed his mentor and why, which feeds into this much larger story that's going on. I found the film fascinating. I was never bored. Of course, it is slow, to be sure. Not that I think that's a problem, but some people obviously will. It's extremely well written, and it's a superior piece of filmmaking that really deserves to be seen by more people. So for all of those reasons, I'm actually going to give it 5 out of 5 and say it's something I'll go back and re-watch for the atmosphere, for the music, for the costumes, for the actual look and feel of it, because it's something really special. So if you like what we do, please subscribe to this channel, follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. You can now support us on Ko-fi if you'd like to do that. We have new episodes coming out every week with myself and my co-host, and occasionally we have a special guest. Don't forget to leave us a comment below as well, and thanks for listening.